Drinking water all day at your tournaments and still feel tired? What if we could hydrate you from the cellular level? At BioWorks Mobile IV Service, our licensed professionals understand what it takes to get through a long day of exercise. We use all natural vitamins to increase hydration, recovery, and prolonged athletic endurance. Help your team get to the podium. Book now by texting the number on your screen or calling today. Call 972-948-8207 to book now. That's 972-948-8207. BioWorks. Hydrate, win, repeat.
In the Pits is partnered with Podrunners Union. Podrunners Union breaking news. Super limited Union Tech tees and, for the first time, Fiesta medals are available online at podrunnersunion.org. Use offer code PITS for 10% off of your order. Stealing pods for undeserving teams. It's a living. In the Pits is partnered with XTPL Events. The Extreme Tournament Paintball League is a series put on by the Lukow family of Paintball Fit fame that gives the opportunity for players to learn and grow together as a team. 3-man, Challengers and Champions X-Ball, Draft Mech X-Ball, and even Youth 3v3. There's something for everyone at XTPL. Not to mention prize tosses, raffles, and the infamous paintball munching contest. Events happen throughout the year, and the prizes never disappoint. Sign up for an XTPL event today on PB Leagues. In the Pits is partnered with Hydra. Designed by players, for players, you can outfit yourself in Hydra gear from head to toe. Have confidence that when you make a purchase from Hydra, you are purchasing a well-tested and well-thought-out product, trusted by several top teams, including first-place semi-pro team, PaintballFit.com. I personally recommend their Hydra Black knee pads. Purchases over $100 receive free shipping. Head to hydra.fit to browse their selection and discover the Hydra mentality. In the Pits is partnered with BEM Wraps. Behind every mask is a unique and creative player. Tap into it when you order your next custom headpiece. Their Build-A-Band lets you communicate with them one-on-one to make your order just the way you want, all the way down to the color of the stitch. Check out their Instagram at BEMWraps for drops and build videos of them working on orders. They offer very competitive pricing, so reach out today to get started on your own one-of-a-kind headpiece. In the Pits is partnered with Mariachi Águilas de Oro. Based in Austin and servicing the surrounding areas, these Golden Eagles will bring life to any event you are having, from birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, corporate events, or even a simple performance to enjoy. Guillermo Padilla, one of their trumpet players, is also a member of the Texas paintball scene. Visit them on Facebook and Instagram to check out some of their past performances, or give them a call to book them for your event today. In the Pits is partnered with Compete. Compete is a Texas-based brand by Jell Stewart of professional team AC Diesel that provides custom jerseys, pants, headbands, straps, tech shirts, and any other soft goods to help individuals and teams compete at the highest level. Support Texas Paintball and message Compete on Facebook or Instagram and mention In the Pits Podcast for 10% off your entire order. In the Pits is partnered with 71 Designs, owned and operated by veteran Wade Martin, and partnered with fellow Texas brand Compete. 71 Designs can take your ideas for soft goods, merchandise, and casual wear and make them a reality. Message 71 Designs on Facebook or Instagram to get started today. In the Pits is partnered with Get Dat Shot. Get Dat Shot is now scheduling photo and reels coverage for teams competing in the upcoming NXL Lone Star Major. Head to getdat_shot on Facebook or Instagram to check out his previous work, or to shoot him a message to secure your media coverage today. In the Pits is partnered with Paintball Kumite. Paintball Kumite is a program designed by Colt Roberts of professional team San Antonio X Factor to take paintball players of all ages, experience levels, and skill groups and mold them into champions. The program breaks the game down into small, easy-to-learn sessions designed to help you master the fundamentals so that you can elevate your game. Newcomers to the program get a free 1-hour introductory class when mentioning In the Pits. To sign up for a class, message at Paintball Kumite on Instagram. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 98 of In the Pits Paintball Podcast. This podcast is focused on everything that has to do with the paintball scene here in Texas, from professional players and teams to new divisional programs, local tournament series, field owners, Texas-based brands, even photographers and videographers. Every week, we'll have a short and sweet episode with a new topic and a new special guest. I'm Christian Dallas Smith. I'm a player for the Texas Titans. In this episode, we're going in the pits with Tyler Spiece, former pro player for AC Dallas, former coach for Austin Notorious, and winner of the NXL Lone Star Major in D4X ball. Tyler, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Feeling good. Well, first, I just want to say, congrats on your win in Dallas. Obviously, it was hard fought one, battling the elements, and
Absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool that our divisions D3 and D4, like most of our playoff games, were on the pro field. That was very nice to get to experience that.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going home for me and getting to experience that again. The guys obviously played amazing. Like you said, we battled those elements, and that was probably some of the worst I've had to play in. But yeah, it was absolutely just a blast, and congratulations on your guys' D3 win as well.
I appreciate that. Do you think that this event now earns the title of NXL Mudfest, or is that still the Galveston one?
I mean, it's such a toss-up, man. Both of them were terrible. You know, I was standing at 8 inches of water, in the corner. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this one was pretty terrible.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, the whole fact that the pros got rescheduled to Atlantic City, like that, I've definitely never seen that before as long as I've been in, and I only know of one other time that has happened.
Yeah, I think that there's only been one other time where they did that, and I don't remember what event it was, but they had to do like the same layout for the next event because it got rained out.
I think that was Galveston heading into Phoenix, if I remember correctly, or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
So, man, that's we'll see if Texas still gets to host an event in April, but that's, I don't know, too many times now that with the rain this year and that freak hailstorm that blew through Round Rock last year, just like all sorts of bad luck.
I mean, that's what kind of happens when they get those areas that are a little bit cheaper because of, cost, you don't get the best weather for them.
Right, for sure. All right, so let's go ahead and get started on this one. This first question is brought to us by XTPL Events. So for those listening that maybe don't know about you, how long have you been involved in the Texas paintball scene?
I believe I came over in 2013. My buddy Ross Saunders, who used to play for Texas Storm, was starting to play with AC Dallas, I think in their D2 year. And him and a couple of my other buddies got together and for the 2014 season, and they convinced me to come down here and play some paintball. So I got involved, I believe at the end of 2000 or the middle of 2013 is when I got here.
All right. So what teams have you played for over the years?
Let's see. I started out 2007 with Punishers PB. We were the sister team to the Philly All-Americans. Tim Montressor decided to give me a chance out there. I got to try out with Chad George and Fat Kid and all those people. So had a super great tryout. Just getting the experience, like what those top players in the game still today were playing back then. So that was an awesome experience as a 16-year-old kid. Then I played with them for a season. The next season, my dad told me I should go try out for this team named Vicious. I knew nothing about them at all, and seemed to be one of the best decisions I ever made, to be honest with you. Went and tried out with them. And ended up getting on that team for a couple years, went pro with them eventually, and then played for Denver Fury as well, FEP Quest, Vicious, obviously, Diesel for a little bit, AC Dallas, DSF. Yeah, kind of been all over the place.
And definitely some big historic names on that. So kind of backing up a little bit, what was it that got you into paintball to begin with?
Yeah. So I was actually going out for my 13th birthday party. got, I don't know, 4 or 5 of my friends together and went out. I don't think I shot a single person all day long. But I just fell in love with the adrenaline that it gave me. And I was an athlete already, playing hockey and soccer and a bunch of other sports. And I don't know, I think that I could just do it around like grown men, and that like really kind of like interested me because like they were older, they were more mature, they had philosophies that I hadn't quite heard yet or experienced. And I think that was the big draw for me that kept me in it, was like being around some of the older people and getting to, grow up a little bit faster than my age group was. And I mean, it just kind of took off.
Love it. I know that a lot of people are saying like coming up back in those days is completely different to now, where back then it was very much like a sink or swim mentality, and a lot of people got weeded out very quickly. Like, kind of like, what was it like back then?
I'll tell you the first experience I had as a semi-pro athlete. Like, so I had played one tournament in Division 3. I got a tryout with Denver Fury at a 7-man event. They were playing semi-pro, and I ended up going out there, made the team, went to the first practice in Denver, and I believe we were playing Denver altitude at the time, and I don't remember who it was, but like literally, like people just started fighting. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, I bunkered a dude clean, dove into the snake, and the next thing I know, like, I'm just getting torn apart. I stand up because I'm 130 pounds soaking wet. Like, I'm not going to do anything. And the next thing I know, like, I get pushed to the ground. When I get pushed to the ground, all of a sudden, like, this guy that I literally have known, like, I've met him twice, comes flying over the snake, pushes the other dude to the ground, and it just starts this huge scuffle. And I'm like sitting there, like, looking at the coach going, like, what's going on? Like, what is this? So definitely a lot more kind of like they talked about in the old films, man. Like, if there wasn't a fight at practice, it probably wasn't a good practice. And it's a different mentality than the kids nowadays. Like, I mean, I talk to Greg all the time when I go to the events, and I always call him soft now. I mean, he's so much softer than like when I grew up with him. I mean, like, it was a brutal mentality, but man, I'll tell you what, it shaped us into champions, and it, I mean, stands the test of time. I don't know that screaming and yelling and MFing people is necessarily the correct way of doing it. It is a way, but I think that, like, it's definitely can be a lot more productive. But I do think that school of hard knocks, I mean, you see it, like the guys that grew up in that era, like, could still come back and still compete and still be able to be at the top of the level of whatever they really want to, as long as they have the time to dedicate to it. But you also got to think, man, like, we practice, like, most people practice for like a couple hours now, and they're like, "Whoo, that was a tough practice." Like, I mean, back then, I mean, Greg literally would get us up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd be at the field by 5:20, 5:30, blowing up the field by, the time the sun caressed and there was just enough light to where you could see something. Couldn't necessarily see what it was, but you could see objects. And then we'd have it blown up by the time it was actually sunlight, and we played until the sun went down where you couldn't even see anything anymore. So definitely a school of hard knocks for sure.
For sure. I mean, that sounds like a lot of paint to shoot as well.
Oh man, there were times where, we'd have 60 cases to shoot, and we lost 1 point all day. Greg would yell at us and just belittle us a little bit, get our morale nice and down, and then go get 40 more cases to shoot until we left. And there was no way to do it. I mean, there was just not enough light. So we had to start, throwing bags of paint into the cornfields or just dumping them out. You fill a pod with a whole 500 bag. I mean, yeah. I mean, because otherwise we didn't get to go home. Like, like, so it's kind of pros and cons there.
Oh man. Well, I can't imagine being able to shoot that much paint just in a like in one practice nowadays. Like, just being able to go get, hey, here's dropping 40 cases halfway through the practice.
I mean, it's a little different when you got a multimillionaire, kind of funding everything and telling you can do whatever you want. Just, make sure you go and, try to win tournaments and do the best you can. It helps a lot to have that kind of funding and backing.
Oh, for sure. For sure. All right, so this question is brought to us by Pod Runners Union. So what are some things that have changed within the Texas scene specifically, either for better or for worse, since you've been involved?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's turned for the better. Honestly, anywhere that Greg Pauly goes, he builds a mecca of paintball, which is kind of why I've followed it around. When we were out in the Midwest in the middle of BFE in Nebraska, I mean, dude, we get tons of teams. I mean, like 50, 60, 70 teams at a tournament in the middle of nowhere. And when he left Vicious, he came down here and there wasn't really a big scene. The only thing I really remember down here was a little bit of Texas Storm. There was a team called Dallas Storm at one point, which they played 7-man, and then you had X Factor. We as Vicious, we would come down and practice them a little bit, but there wasn't a huge scene down here where like the tournaments were just popping off. And then Rab and him created that USXBL or AXBL, whatever it started out as. And man, it gave an outlet to a lot of teams that didn't have the ability to play the nationals because they were so expensive, right? And I mean, it just blew up from there. Now I would say that, unfortunately, like we are the mecca of paintball, not California anymore for them,
Oh, for sure. I mean, look at the numbers that we've been doing, like just locally over the past 2 years. I mean, you saw like beginning with Bunkerfest coming in at the start of last year. I think their first event had just shy of 100 teams across all of the divisions. We only had the premier division for that first event, but we had guys like, I want to say Stephen O'Mara came down and played with Nasty. So when we're able to draw in top talent like that to come play a local event in Texas, and and that momentum has definitely carried over into this year with what Mike Hinman's doing with USXBL. They sold out of the first event, and like we have a proper elite division, which is like kind of a hybrid between D3 and D2, but like the growth here in Texas is undeniable.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that what Mike's doing is great too. I think that, a lot of the higher level teams, and I think that kind of became the problem when we were playing around here as AC Dallas, is we ranked out of everything. You got to buy a plane ticket to go somewhere and play. And unfortunately, like when real life hits, like that's not always an option. Like we do have real jobs, we do have to grind still, we do have to do other things in life, and buying a plane ticket every time just isn't necessarily like always feasible. So I'm super happy that Mike's actually allowing some of those higher level division players to be able to play in local events, because that's going to just help the sport to keep growing and keep getting bigger and bigger around here.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking in the chat, looks like Dylan Strickland says, congrats on the win in Dallas.
Oh, thank you, Dylan. Appreciate you, man. Congratulations on your D3 win as well.
Yeah, appreciate that. All right. So going back to your history as a player, so your PB Leagues profile started coverage in 2006, where you competed in D3, D4, and intermediate X-Ball before you jumped up to the open division in 2007 and Division 1 in 2008. So what was that jump like back in those days, going from like D3, D4 all the way up to D1?
Man, well, let's just say the open division that I played in was actually against like true pro teams. So like that was when Impact was in there. That was when Aftermath was in there. That was like the Aftermath with all the big swingers, right? Like that wasn't. I think like maybe Mouse had gone somewhere and possibly Rainey at that point, but everybody else was still there. You had teams like the New Blood Avalanche that was there. They were freaking killing it with Brandon Mayo and all those guys, Danny Tiljack. So yeah, I mean, very much like what you said, like sink or swim. Like you're going up against dudes that are winning 7-man events against Dynasty in 7-man, and they added 3 more dudes or 5 more dudes to their roster and came over and played an open division because they couldn't go play the pro division. So very much a sink or swim moment. I mean, actually, that team that I played on, Stan Monville was on that team with me. Danny Benitez, who used to play on Evil Factory. Chad Itella, Nick, I forget his name, Nick something. He played for Shock. Drew Hire, he played for Infamous and a bunch of other teams in the pro division. So, I mean, even us, like we did have a pro team as well, you know, other than like people like myself and Sam who were coming up from like D3.
All right. So like, I mean, I guess as far as the skill difference between those divisions, like what, like, would you say it's somewhat equivalent to how it is now? Like looking at the difference between like going from D4 to D3, for example, or how was that disparity?
I would dare to say that back then, the skills of the players were tenfold of what they are now. And the reason I say that isn't because, like, you know, the skills of the players are so less now. It's that people were playing 4 or 5 times a week back then. There's not very many people that are playing that much anymore. You know, I mean, like when I was at my best, I mean, I didn't have to think about it. Like I put a ball wherever I wanted and I could hit a, you know, quarter-inch stick 30 yards away. You know, but again, you're playing 5 times a week. You're shooting minimum 5 cases by yourself if you're only just going out and doing drills. I mean, it's a lot different when you have the ability to shoot that much. Now, what I will say is that I think the teamwork of the lower divisional teams has come a long way from what it used to be, right? I mean, back in the day, you're shooting 15 balls a second. I mean, Jesus, you were lucky to get 5 dudes alive. You know, I mean, like 15 balls a second. I mean, dudes just started dropping like flies. And so I do think that like the teamwork has come a long ways in those. As far as like those divisional jumps, I mean, yeah, it was a massive jump. I mean, like think about like you're going from playing, you know, who you did in the finals to all of a sudden you're going to play Impact. Like, you know, I mean, it's a pretty massive jump. Those guys are smart players even back then. Yeah, I would definitely say it was a massive jump. And I mean, let me tell you, there was a strong learning curve. I got some whomping sticks on that. I remember when I made that jump up to the open division with the Punishers. We actually played 5 of the Philly All-Americans out of practice for 2 days. And we played 100 points. And of those 100 points, we lost 98 of them. We only won 2 points all weekend. And it was the same 5 dudes just sticking the wood to us. Like, it was a strong learning curve. But we also took a 4th place that year. So, I mean, like, you know, the Philly All-Americans were really coming into their own. They were winning in the, you know, or they were at least doing well that year. They started winning, I think, in 2009 consistently. But they were winning over in Europe that year. They were doing well in the 7-mans. And, I mean, they were definitely – I think they made it to the semifinals or the quarterfinal – or I think it was semifinals at World Cup that year. So, yeah, definitely some lumps. Definitely some strong learning curves.
For sure. I mean, better to take those in practice than at the event, though, right?
Yeah, man. I truly believe that in practice, you should be taking your lumps. Like, if you're winning every game at practice, that should never be your goal. You know, the worst practices I've ever had are the best tournaments I've ever had. So when I'm getting my, you know, stuff pushed in at practice, I'm usually super excited about the tournament because that means I'm learning. You know, if I'm not learning anything, then probably going to be pretty bad when someone throws a curveball at me that I wasn't ready for, that I didn't see at practice. But if I know what I can make, I know what I can survive in, I know how far they can make it down the field, or I know how far I can run down the field off the break or what have you. I mean, it makes all the difference in the world to know all that information.
Definitely.
So take chances. Take chances. If you don't take chances, you can't learn.
Oh, for sure. So this question is brought to us by BemRaps. So people associate you usually with the AC Dallas Pro team, but not all that many people, I think, know that you also played pro with Vicious. So what was your experience playing pro with Vicious, and how did it compare with the AC program?
Yeah, I mean, polar opposites, right? Like, love the Vicious guys, love, you know, everything I got to experience in that organization. They honestly, like, Greg taught me how to win. He taught me how to be a champion in that organization. So I'm forever indebted to them. But I believe that the Vicious camp, and which inevitably was their downfall, they played so much that like when we lost, like I didn't understand like when we first lost, like I didn't understand like the concept of what they would do, but they would just go sit in their rooms, and they would just like kind of like be like super sad about stuff and what have you. And I mean, like I kind of adopted that mentality because I didn't really know how to win at that point. But I think that was inevitably like the real downfall of that team is they just didn't have fun. Like there were times that we had fun for sure. Like we'd go out to like a practice and do something fun or, go to, some event or something like that. But it was always so much work and it became a job. And at some point it's like, man, if you're not getting paid for this, I got other life things going on. We're all in college. We're all growing up. Like it kind of got to that point where it wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun at all, which is kind of why I left, which is why Greg inevitably left. Like he was miserable. I mean, like, and that's inevitably why I understood that team kind of broke down. I mean, like they started together, they wanted to stop together. But every time I would talk to those guys, I mean, like they'd kind of be like, oh yeah, we're gonna, yeah. It's like, okay, that doesn't sound like very much fun. Which is the complete actual opposite of what happened on AC Dallas. Like AC Dallas, I got to go play with some of my best friends in the world, man. Tim Land, Ross Saunders, Dylan Bewley. And I made some great friends too, along with like Alec Measel, Brandon Mayo, Nathan Roberts, Cody Zepeda, Diaz. I mean, like we had some of the best times. And what I really learned after Vicious was I actually hated paintball. I hated everything about paintball. Didn't want to do it. It was just miserable experience. And, it's hard to like win a lot of points at a practice and then just get like belittled and beaten down because like you lost 1 point, right? Like you lose 1 point in a practice, like you can't be playing that bad. You just can't. You got to lose one every so often, right? And even though we were playing some lower divisional teams at certain points, like again, like they're going to win a point every so often. Maybe they shoot a guy off the break, make a good move, like whatever it is. But it was just always like perfection. And I just don't think that was a way to strive. It's a way to burn out, but I don't think it was a way to thrive and really like hit the stride that we could have hit with that team. So once I left them, like I think I took like what was that? I think I left in 2010. So I think like a 3 or 4 year hiatus, kind of went and lived a little bit of life, kind of played through some other teams with Denver Fury, got back into them. And Denver Fury really taught me how to have fun again. So when I got with, Dylan Bewley, Ross, and Tim, man, I grew up with those dudes. And so growing up with those guys, like we were always kind of the goobers. And I think we stressed Greg out probably a little too much because like we probably looked like we didn't take things seriously. I had, I don't know if you see me at events, but I have my short shorts out with loud colors on and my fanny pack and Nerf gun. And I'm here to have fun, like if you're not having fun, you're not going to do well. I can just say that. So we had a lot of fun. Greg wanted to kill us probably 99% of the time. I know he would tell us to be serious and all those kind of things, but for me, having fun is being serious. If you can have fun and find that focus point where you can have so much fun, but you can clock in and be serious when you need to, I think that's where true champions are actually built. You can't stay clocked in 24/7 in a tournament. There's too many days of it. You're going to exhaust mentally, physically, emotionally. You just need to turn on for that match and turn out. And so that's what we really did in the AC Dallas camp, is we were able to click in and click out really good. Dylan Bewley running around in his Howling Wolf shirts and his, jorts. I mean, like just making fun of people and cracking jokes all the time kept us really loose and having fun. And that's the key to me, at least.
Oh, for sure. I mean, with how much work, especially nowadays, it is to be able to compete at any level, really, like even Division 5, Division 4, like it's no joke. It's not an easy thing to do to go out and win tournaments. So it's a lot of work that everybody has to put in. And like even the guys like the guys that are winning in D5, D4, D3, they've been together oftentimes for multiple seasons, playing together, grinding, like practicing teams that are better than them, taking their lumps in practice. And a lot of it is even during the week now with like the ability to record yourself, go back and watch your practice footage. Like it's just so much additional work. So it's definitely important to be able to enjoy what it is that you're doing.
Absolutely. And I think that that's the key that like a lot of these kids need to take away is that, like have fun. Above all else, like winning comes. But if you're not having fun, there's no point in doing whatever you're doing. I don't care what it is. Like it's just and if you hate it, like right, like I mean, I say have fun, but there's times where it's miserable and you have to make it fun. Right. So I remember doing drills and shooting those poles and all that stuff. And I'd rather be hanging out with my friends doing anything else than shooting poles. But I made it fun. I found something. I'd shoot the neighbor's house or something. I mean, I don't know what I would do, but something that I probably wasn't supposed to do, but it was fun, and so it kept me entertained enough to keep me engaged, where I could really excel and get myself where I wanted to be. And I mean, I use that throughout life now. I mean, there's days at work that I wake up and go, "Oh, this sucks. Like it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I really don't want to do this anymore." And I'm like, "No, man. Like I get to go do this, and this is gonna be so fun. It's such a great day." And talk myself up, and then it's a great day.
I mean, hell, the Sunday at NXL, I think, is a perfect example of that.
Oh, I had so much fun, man. I'll be honest with you. Like everybody else was just sitting there complaining, and I just had a blast. Like I felt like my inner kid just came out and just like went and splashed around in some puddles, man. It was great.
Oh yeah, I was having a fantastic time. Like before the match, like if I would see whoever our opponent was, and I was like, "Look, whatever the outcome of this match is, we all know that we're all a bunch of idiots for being out here."
Oh yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, definitely had a ton of fun, and that's basically what you have to do. Just tune out, like when you're in the zone like that, you just tune out everything else. It's just your guys against their guys. Everything else is equal anyway.
Yeah. I mean, like I remember like hearing all the teams too be like, "Oh, this sucks. Like, why are we doing this?" Like, and man, I just sat there with a smile on my face, being like, "Man, like we are doing this. Like, we are having a blast. Like, how many people are either getting ready for work or doing something that they don't want to do or doing chores right now? At least you get to go be a kid and splash around in some water and maybe get a cool photo or something like that. Or like myself, if you watch the webcast, I slide into Dorito 3 or whatever, and my knee catches and I face plant into the ground. I mean, like, hey, it was a great time,
Oh yeah, definitely. So this next question is brought to us by Mariachi Aguilas de Oro. So after 2018, you left the playing aspect of the game. However, you stayed strong with your coaching involvement. So what about your playing retirement?
Yeah, that was more of a forced retirement than anything. I actually was playing in Vegas in 2000, I believe it was 16, and I got a brain injury. So I was playing against Distortion in the third and fourth match for the consolation, and I forget which guy it was, but he basically shot me one time. It hit me in the temple, and it knocked me out. Freak accident that I don't really know how or why it happened necessarily, other than it hit me in the temple. So it obviously caused a little bit of trauma there. I ended up, flying home, finishing the match, flying home, which was not smart at all. I should have gone to the hospital, but never been knocked out before, didn't know what it felt like, didn't know what was happening, didn't even realize I'd been knocked out. And so I got home, basically went to the hospital, and they told me I had a concussion, that I'd survived the worst of it, that, I'd be okay. So I think I had that for 2 weeks. I was getting ready for Chicago at the time. And as I was preparing for Chicago with Diesel, Mark Johnson and I had come down from AC, the pro team, to go rebuild and win the pro spot with Diesel and all our friends. And so I had to call him, and I didn't really understand what was going on. I just realized I started having like kind of panic attacks. I was actually going, prior to those practices, there was another practice that we had gone up to Dallas for, and I was riding with Jesse Stevens, and I had like I don't want to say a seizure, because I don't believe it was a seizure to my fullest extent, but like I couldn't stop like shaking my hands, and like it was more of like a panic attack is what I thought it was. But like I had to have Jesse stop the car. I had to get out. I had to walk around. I had to like figure, like it was just a whole mess. And so I was sitting there before the Chicago practices started, and I just got really anxious, and I don't know why. There was no rhyme or reason. So I had to call Mark and be like, "Hey man, I can't make it to practice. I don't know what's going on. I just can't make it." And obviously he was upset about it. Like, I mean, I was his go-to guy. Like, we were trying to rebuild a pro spot, and now like I'm just, not showing up to practice. Like that's not like me. I've always shown up to practice. I was always a grinder. And so like what really hurt me the most was like I had to actually cancel that tournament. Like I sat there and I didn't know what was wrong. I just felt wrong. Like I felt like I wasn't myself, and I felt like I was having these anxiety attacks all the time, and like it just wasn't normal. So I ended up canceling that event, disappeared from paintball for a while because I was misdiagnosed for like 6 months on what was going on. So I basically went to a neurologist at a certain point. I'd gone to multiple different doctors and nobody could really figure out what was going on with me. So I went to a neurologist because really I just wanted to know if I was dying. Like I didn't know if I had a brain tumor. I didn't know what was going on. So and at the time my cousin had neoblastoma, which is a deadly brain cancer. So I was having the same symptoms as him, and I was like, golly, like please don't have that. Like that is not desirable. So I ended up figuring out what it was. It was called post-concussion syndrome. It's basically where the brain is healing, but there is no trauma to the brain like the initial concussion. So I ended up figuring that out, kind of healing myself back up. At this point, like I've already had to quit my job. I've already had to, I've been in a room for 6 to 8 months in the dark. I literally slept almost 22 hours a day. It was insane. If I bent down and touched my knees, I would have to go to sleep for 25 hours, because neurologically I was so like fatigued and just out of it. So I couldn't obviously work at that point. Thank God, my parents, were able to help me and, let me move back in with them and kind of, take care of me during that feat. So that was a blessing in and of itself, just being able to have a family that could actually assist me, and I wasn't trying to make rent happen and going in debt and all those kind of things. So, internally grateful for that. Finally got healed up. And then that's when you saw that win come out of Amsterdam Heat over in Europe. Mark called me up, asked me if I wanted to play again. I had no idea necessarily what was going to happen. I didn't know if I would have an aneurysm on the flight. I didn't know if I would have a panic attack on the flight. But I knew I wanted to travel the world again. I knew I wanted to play paintball. So we went over, me, Nathan Roberts, Ryan Hall, and Mark, and I think Johnny Greer from Aftermath. And we took the European tournament by storm and won that. And after that, for me, it was really more or less about what was I getting out of it, right? Like, at that point, I've already won multiple pro spots. I've already won series championships, World Cups. I've won the biggest tournaments there were to win. So at that point, it was kind of like, all right, like I've won over in Europe now. Like it kind of, solidifies everything. What am I really like risking, like having another brain injury for? And so I just kind of took a back seat to that, and, like was happy with what I did. My goal was always to win a pro spot with my friends. And on AC Dallas, we did that. I accomplished that goal with that group of dudes. So, everything I wanted to accomplish was accomplished at that point. So I just wanted to pass on the knowledge. I felt like I had something to offer the sport still. So I started, helping Notorious in I think 2013 or 2014. When I originally came over here, Ross Saunders kind of got me hooked up with them. So yeah, and kind of natural progression, I guess.
That is crazy. Just one freak hit. Like was it like you got bunkered in the temple, or just like a shot from somewhere on the field? Like,
from what I remember, he was maybe like 15 feet away from me, 10 feet away from me. He wasn't like on me. He wasn't like on top of me, like
right
in my head that I remember. He was a couple, at least 5-10 feet away from me. And just, I think he was just shooting, and just one ball hit me, kind of like down in the temple like that, because I was wrapped down around a Dorito, and just freak accident.
And that is
also why I wear a helmet now.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that at all. Like that's a crazy little freak thing. I wonder, like I've definitely gotten a concussion from paintball before, but it was like a freak, like all the way across the field at the combine, like how they had it set up where they had all of the giant bunkers, like cutting the 50 in half, and they were doing running and gunning on both sides of the field. But of course, at the combine, there's a bunch of little kids, and so they're
Yeah.
running and gunning, not that great.
Do some of that stuff.
So yeah, I took one literally from like the full field away, but it just hit in the perfect spot, and like, you know, lights were giving me headaches, and like I had definitely like had concussion symptoms for like 2 weeks. But man, like it's crazy like how like freak things like that can happen.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot more paintball players need to, you know, like be aware of. I mean, I grew up in the, you know, era of if the guy gets to the 50, I'm going to go stick this dude and I'm going to make him hurt so he doesn't come back up here because I don't want to have to go suffer again getting him. And my mentality has definitely changed after my brain injury. I mean, like I don't do that to dudes anymore. I understand that it can completely change and alter your life in an instant. And I don't want to lose my career again. That sucked, you know, enough the first time. But I don't want to cost anybody, you know, like their career either. You know, like I wouldn't wish what happened to me on my worst enemy. It truly is life altering and changing. You know, I mean, if I didn't have the support system that I had, I mean, I don't even know what would have happened. You know, thank God I did, because I mean, some of those bills got crazy expensive.
Man, like I bet now, like especially with at least in the last 10 years or so, like especially with in like football and the NFL, like the big focus on like brain health and brain injuries and all that. Like I wonder if or like how any of that kind of translates to paintball.
Yeah, I mean, so I can kind of tell you, like from doing my own research, Dr. Mark Gordon's who I got a lot of the traumatic brain injury stuff from, but he actually has a center, and it becomes down to a hormonal imbalance in the brain. And so what happens is you could stand up and barely like tap your head on like a countertop, and that's enough to alter the chemistry in your brain and cause everything that I have. They don't quite understand it by the last time I researched it, why it happens to some people, and some people can smash their head down and like nothing happens to them. They don't even quite understand, like when I was going through all my stuff, why post-concussion syndrome even happens to some people and not to others. Like you could have a minor brain injury and have post-concussion syndrome to the max severity, but you could have a major brain injury and have nothing. Like they don't understand that quite at all. So, but I would definitely tell the younger players out there to, you know, be cautious of that. You know, like don't try to like take someone's life away because like you want to be a jerk or something like that. You know, like be respectful. You know, like you shoot a dude, like don't try to shoot him in the head, man. Like, you know, be respectful of the sport, and like we're trying to grow this sport. You know, if we're trying to get big sponsors from outside, like it's not going to help to injure people and, you know, be malicious and do all those kind of things like it used to be back in the day. It's going to be better to, you know, like be a good sportsmanship and actually be a friend to the guys that you're playing with, and, you know, like show respect to those guys. Now, when they step on the other side of the field, like, hey, it is what it is, but like you don't have to shoot them 42 times into the ground. You could literally shoot them once in the pack, and to me, that's more demoralizing because it's like, yeah, dude, I got you so good. Like I didn't have to shoot you in the neck. I literally shot you once in the pack. Like, get off my field, you know?
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I guess for anyone out there who maybe needs resources on that, what, like, whenever you do step onto the field, what gear are you wearing for your head?
I wear a rugby helmet, to be honest with you, brother. I am not going back down again. I know they have like a skull cap or something like that, and like some guy tried to like, you know, push me onto that, and to me, like in what I suffered, it's just not securing enough for me. Like now, someone that doesn't have like major brain injuries or whatever, or like I did, they may be able to get away with that because supposedly it lessens the blow of the paintball and stuff like that. But to me, like I don't feel safe in it just because it's not thick enough, you know. And like I don't get a bunch of bounces off of my rugby helmet or anything like that. But to me, like I want zero chance of that ever happening when I step onto a field because like, again, it was a freak accident. Like I can't afford for another freak accident and another 3 years to go by for me to be able to like do what I need to do. You know, like that. I'm 34 right now. I'll be 37 if that happened today. Like I don't want to be in my 40s and, you know, dealing with all that, trying to get my career back.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So, kind of moving forward into the coaching aspect of the game. So, this one's brought to us by Colt Roberts, Paintball Kumite. So, you were like the main coach of the Austin Notorious divisional program for 6 years, from 2018 to 2023. So, how did you? I know you kind of talked a little bit about how Ross Saunders connected you with the program, but how did you like really dive deep into the involvement there?
Yeah. I mean, Mark Franz and I had always talked. I was always around them, like just doing drills and stuff like that. I think he liked my influence and the mentality that I took. For me, I'm an extremely cerebral person. So I really dive down into like the philosophies of things and like, different styles of thinking and what you can do and like how the mind works and, I guess like the sports psychology of it all, right? So I think he liked that a lot about me. And I mean, obviously I was winning. So I mean, you can't hate that about somebody. So I don't really remember exactly how it started. I mean, I know he would ask me to coach a couple tournaments here or there, and I'd be like, all right, cool, yeah, I can do that or this, or come out to our practice. And then I think he just started seeing the fruits of our labor, I really broke down the fields where I would see it. And my coaching style is derived out of all of the different people that coached me. So like Tim Monfresser, Greg Pauly, Scotty Flint was a huge influence on me when I was younger too. And even some of the pro guys, like, Drew Heyer and Danny Benitez and those guys. And I saw how a lot of these coaches would coach. And it was always like, this is how I coach. And my philosophy is each person needs a different style of coaching. Like sometimes you got a little bit of softer guy. Sometimes you got a guy that just is hard-headed as hell and you got to get through to him. So you got to knock on some wood a little bit. And each player is different to me. So like I always approach the player with how they need it to be. And so I believe that that's where like we found a lot of success, is because I was breaking down the fields to where it was so simplistic. It's like, okay, you go to this bunker, you shoot this, you wrap, you go. You shoot this, wrap, go. Shoot that, win this head up, and then you go, right? Like, and I just broke it down to where like they didn't even have to really think anymore. Which is how paintball gets when you get to those higher levels, right? I mean, I'm sure you guys have the same, things going on now where you're like, okay, this is the guy, boom, I go. And so we found some really solid success. I mean, we had Diego Soto back in the day. He was the natural, just a stud player out there. Marky was coming into his own.
Oh, I think I lost you.
Oh,
yep. There we go.
Sorry, my dog's seizure meds came on. So for me, it was really about like making sure that these kids had fun, right? Like first and foremost, like they lived up to the fuck shit up to the max, and they fucked a lot of shit up. Like we'd have like a 1-on-5 and we'd lose the point because like they would just start running at this dude. So we had to slow them down a little bit, have them understand the game and understand that like paintball is fun when you're winning, because winning is fun. So once they kind of started getting like those understandings, like I think I started coaching Ty when he first got on the team, and Marky and Desmond was on the team at that point. I think Nick Lemon and a bunch of other guys. So we found success, and I took what I didn't like about my coaches and I changed that for what I would have wanted. So I'm very much a coach for the players, by the players, right? Like I don't come in and dictate things. I help you build a environment and a camaraderie between each other, because like that's what it's going to take to be able to succeed. If I come in and I try to be a dictator, like a lot of these guys do, like this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, maybe that's not how these guys respond. Maybe these guys don't respond to that. So like, yeah, it's great that I want it my way, but that's not how we're going to be successful. So definitely being moldable and stuff like that, I think is a huge key to being a coach, and meeting those guys where they are and understanding how to win. if you don't understand how to win, like, I don't care what kind of coach you are, like, good luck, you know?
Definitely. Yeah, that's so much of that is like exactly like for me having a background as an elementary school teacher, that's exactly the mentality. Like you have to teach them how they learn, not they can't adjust to you. You have to adjust to their style of learning and like your background, like with the different coaches that you've had over the years. I'm very curious if anybody out there has drawn up like a paintball coaching tree and kind of where everybody falls from that, and how many coaches out there like have come from like Greg Pauly, like I know like yourself, Ross Saunders, Jeremy Zimmerman, some guys out there that have been around and been coaching very successfully at the divisional level have definitely fallen from that branch.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Pauly, I mean, dude, he's touched probably most of the league at this point, you know, like with his influence and stuff like that. And so like I would definitely attribute, you know, a lot of the Midwest guys. I know like he worked with, you know, Drew Templeton. I mean, we had Billy Bernacchi on the team for a time. You know, all the Vicious guys are pretty much out of it at this point, but I mean, Sauceman was there, but I don't think Greg ever coached him directly. But yeah, I mean, I can tell you this, like he has been around, especially with like the Avalanche guys, like most of the top players that had an influence on them.
For sure. All right. So this question is brought to us by Bioworks IV. So Austin Notorious has won many events, an entire series under your coaching. So what do you think the biggest factor was that put Notorious above the competition so consistently for such a long time?
I mean, I think Mark did a really good job of getting, you know, good players. You know, and not necessarily just always good players. Like we didn't always have the best players, but players that were willing to be a teammate. I think that was a huge key. And like also teaching these guys, like when these guys would come in with these big blown up heads, you know, like that hadn't really accomplished anything. It's like, look, dude, like I get you have your way of doing things, but like this is how you win. Like this isn't my formula. This is the winning formula, and I can show you lineages like we just talked about of who's won. You know, this is how Vicious won. This is how they went pro. This is how AC Dallas went pro. This is why we were successful. Like this is the proven method. And so teaching them, you know, like zone calls, how to control a field, it just makes it easier. If you can say one word and you know that the guys, you know, the closest guy to you is in the money, well, then that tells you a lot of where either to turn your gun, or if you're in the snake, you can just crawl down and most likely put it on that dude, right? And you didn't even have to think. It's just automatic. But yeah, I think that, you know, like those kids being very learnable and teachable was a huge factor in it. And I think they saw the success that, you know, like I was having in AC Dallas and had in AC Dallas. And so I think they trusted me because of like what I was trying to teach them. Because to me, like I always taught them that, you know, like winning is fun. Mm-hmm. You know, like I like to have fun was always like my kind of go-to thing. Like, hey, we're going to have fun. And then they're like, you know, like some of the newer guys would be like, oh yeah, okay. And then I'm like, you know, what's fun? Winning. And then they would kind of understand like, hey, like we are going to have fun, but we're going to do this in a rate where we can actually be productive and not just, you know, screw this up and, you know, go 3-1 or 1-3 and then go home and high five. Like that's not the goal. So, and I think also teaching them that winning is a habit, right? Like I think a lot of people think that like winning is just going to happen at some point. But I truly believe like once I learned how to win through Greg Pauly, like winning became a habit for me. And for me, it didn't become a habit because I loved winning so much. It became a habit because I hated losing so much that the only option that I had, which is what Greg Pauly taught me, was to win, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. It's very interesting to see like kind of the maturing of especially divisional paintball since guys underneath Greg Pauly have gotten more involved locally, like the whole like zones system, teaching like zone offense, zone defense, like, hey, we got to lock off. If no one's past the first bunker on the snake side, this like someone's got to make sure that stays the case throughout the whole game, and that we're going to take advantage of that. Like guys are learning zones now in Division 5 when a couple of years ago that was like hey, we didn't really talk about zones until Division 3, you know.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. I mean, it was a concept that was so foreign to people because I feel like it was so simple that they're like, no, there has to be more to this. And it's like, no, it's not really that complicated. Like, you don't have to make it that complicated. And I'm sure the guys have gotten it way more complicated than what it used to be, but we always called it the system. The system works.
mm-hmm.
And like when you can literally say one word and like you said, like you know exactly where that guy is, or you know that you own this entire side of the field, like it makes you confident, you know, especially, you know, back in the day, like we heard Iowa or, you know, Texas. I mean, man, like it was coming. Like that just it made us perk up, made us just want to go, you know, do the job that we knew that we could do at that point, you know, and you got to look like a superstar not even doing anything hardly. You know, like I crawled to their side of the snake and I lay there, and then all of a sudden all of them get shot because they're so worried about me being in their side of the snake. And all I did was know that I can crawl this way because the guy's not out here, you know?
Right. I forget who put it this way exactly, but like me being a back player, I was like, hey, I was told to get comfortable shooting the net for long periods of time. And
Oh, yeah. Well, I did in Dallas. I shot a gap. I didn't shoot hardly anybody. I just didn't let him come down the Dorito side at all.
Exactly. And, you know, the kills will come. All you got to do is shoot the net, and they will definitely walk through it at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's what a lot of like the divisional players don't really understand is that like they want to be engaged in gunfights, which are risky. Don't like them personally. You know, they want to see somebody so they can shoot them, and it's like, man, if I don't see a single person come past the first bunker on the Dorito side or the snake side, yes, that is a boring tournament to some people, but to me, I get excited.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to gunfight anybody. I don't have to get shot in the fingers. That's great. You know, like I don't have to like literally do anything. All I got to do is shoot this gap, and they can't do anything. And my dudes on the other side are just going to go down and shoot them in the side. Fantastic.
Yeah, just realizing that paintball, like, even though we all have paintball guns or in our hands and we're all shooting, you know, hundreds, if not thousands of paintballs, like it's a game about movement and zones and territories. It's not so much a game about just shooting. Like shooting is the final part of the equation when 90% of the work is just movement and containment.
Absolutely. Yeah, I learned from Greg Pauly a long time ago that, like, you know, gunfighting, depending especially where you are, is a 50-50 shot at best. And most likely if you're in the snake, it's probably like a 30-70 their side, you know? So like he always just taught us to choose smart decisions. You know, like don't come into like where you know there's going to be 2 or 3 guys looking at you. Like just stay alive at that point, you know? And I think that that's what like the divisional guys could learn a lot more of is you don't have to make these like superstar huge runs 3 bunkers over. Like that's not how you're going to win a tournament. If you make it 1 bunker over, that's a great thing. Now reassess, make sure you're still alive, make sure your dude's still alive, and then make another small bump. And then 2 more bumps later, you're out in the corner and now you can actually survive. But they try to make too many glory runs. And like for someone like you or I who knows containment, it's like, okay, well, you're not going to make it past this thing. Okay, well, you ran through my gun. Okay, that was easy enough. Okay, now another guy runs through. Okay, well, now we have 22 at least. Like now we have the side. Like we're good to go. You know? Whereas if they would have stayed alive, it would have made my life a lot harder because now I got to gunfight you. I got to give you a chance to shoot me possibly. That makes it a lot harder on me.
Definitely. All right. So kind of wrapping up your coaching arc here. So you left the Austin Notorious program midway through last season, right after the Notorious D4 line went on a historic 4-event win streak. They went undefeated in, what was it, like a 37 match win streak or something like that?
I think it was 42.
42? Wow. Yeah. So
42-0.
Yeah, that's an insane streak that I don't think we'll ever see again, at least not for a while. So would you like to share any details on why or how the split happened, especially in the middle of such a massive run?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, like to the guys that played on that D4 team, man, thank you for letting me have the honor to be able to coach you and trust me to guide that. It was an absolute blessing and I loved every freaking minute of it. That's where I thrive is, you know, helping people rise to the occasion and really, experience something that I've always wanted to do. You know, I kind of set that personal goal for myself. You know, the best I've ever done is won a couple tournaments in a year, and I thought that that was a great feat. I wanted to win 4 in a year personally. And I had conversations with some of those guys that, you know, like that was kind of my goal. If I came over and did that, like this was what I was aiming for. And I only talked to a couple of them about it because I didn't want everybody to be like, oh my God, like 4 tournaments, like, oh shit, like that's a lot. Like, you know, because I knew what the mountain was going to feel like. I just tried to keep them level headed enough to be able to do that. But thank you so much for being able to let me, you know, have that opportunity. But getting into kind of like why we split ways, it was honestly kind of tragic on my side. It kind of broke my heart because I wanted to continue. Like I wanted 3 series last year. We were in the runnings for all 3 of them when I left. The USXBL? We had won an NXL. They were also going to take a USXBL, our highest from that. So we would have had 2 wins in the NXL. And then if we won World Cup, we would have won the series for the NXL. But the reason we ended up splitting ways was Mark Franz basically wanted me to do 3 teams for what I was getting paid for 1 team. And that's not how the real world works. Unfortunately, like when you ask someone to do more work, you have to pay them more. And he didn't like that. Although we did it for like 4 tournaments or 3 tournaments, where I was coaching all of his teams and every single team was making Sunday. Every single, you know, like the D5 guys won every tournament that I coached them. The D4 guys won all but I think 1 tournament that I coached them. And honestly, the only reason they didn't win that tournament was because the fatigue mentally that was starting to set in was so great because like we were going every single weekend. Every weekend we were doing something in paintball or we were playing a tournament, and it just, you know, the travel and everything. I mean, I was getting home at 2:00 in the morning and, you know, having to go to work at 4. You know, I mean, it was insane. So like all these guys started getting fatigued. So, I mean, we lost 1 tournament, you know, and I think we got like a 6th or something like that. But basically what happened was Mark pretty much tried to strong arm me. You know, like we were doing great. None of the players were all happy with the deals that we were doing. And Mark basically called me up one day and told me that I could come coach a practice with 3 teams for $300 or I didn't have to come. But the reality is like that the D4 team would pay me $400 for just them. So it's like, why would I come coach 3 teams for $100 less? And you're not covering my gas. You're not covering my food. Like, so I'm literally going to make like $100 to drive all the way to Austin, wear and tear my car and like all that. Like, it just didn't make sense. And so he told me like, you can do 3 teams for $300 or you don't have to come. So I told him I wasn't coming. Like, that's just not going to happen. Like no, not happening. So he decided that, you know, like he was again going to try to kind of, I guess, try to bully me around or something. I don't know what his exact idea was. I'm not going to put words in his mouth or anything like that. But to me, it felt like he was trying to like bully me around and try to get me cheaper because he thought, I don't know if he could or whatever. But by what I understand, they're paying like maybe like $10 less. Because I mean, I still talk to all those guys. I mean, still talk to, you know, I mean, even at, you know, the D5 guys that moved up to D4, like I talked to all those guys, like they're all, you know, good dudes. And, you know, every time I see them, like we always chat it up. But yeah, by what I understand, like they're not getting any cheaper deal really. I mean, maybe $10 a person, but they're not winning anything, you know? So, I mean, like to me, like 10, $20 a person, like, and you're winning. I mean, we won over $30,000 last year. Like, that's a lot of money, and they lost probably 50 after they got rid of me and they lost all the series. You know, I mean, not to say that we would have won all of them. You know, I mean, maybe something happened and we didn't. You know, I mean, it's paintball, it's real life. I mean, you know, maybe half the team gets COVID and, you know, we can't play 4 events. I mean, I don't know, but I mean, with the streak that we were going and how I could, you know, really influence those teams, I mean, I felt we were unstoppable. And so in that regard, I mean, like Mark felt like he made the best decision. He tried to say to the guys that he was trying to protect them from me. which I don't know what he was protecting them from me for. I mean, we won $30,000 and we were getting ready to win 50. So, I mean, I guess, he protected them from winning $50,000, I guess. So we ended up splitting ways, and really what happened was I went full transparency. I don't believe in shadows. I don't believe in playing in the dark. I believe in we're men. We can talk like men and we can have conversations like men. And I felt like there was too much shadow games going on. And so I wrote out, which I let you read, posts that I made in our group chats. And basically it said, this is what I'm going to charge for one team. This is what I'm going to charge for two teams. This is what I'm going to charge. And they're just day rates. Like, these aren't going to be hourly. This is just day rates for teams. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to get a huge tent together, and I wanted to have everybody underneath there. So I didn't have to have 32 conversations about hey, how you play the snake. Like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're going to play it. This is what this is what we're being successful with. And then, mold it to what that exact player had, the talents for. But when I posted, this is what the food's going to cost. This is what again, it's all negotiable, right? If one guy wanted to cover all of it, cool, man, I don't really care. Mm-hmm. But at the point, every player was paying, his equal share. So if it was $400 a day, which is what we ended up deciding for the D4 guys, it was because it was $50 that they knew they had to come up with, right? Instead of being okay, well, it's $35.65 per hour, and we did 14 hours, and so it just varies too much, right? So we came up with a method where it was hey, it's going to be consistent. You're going to know what you're going to pay, and I'm going to lose out on tournaments most likely, but I'll make it up in the practices, right? And we'll pretty much be even, because the practice will be a little bit longer, but that's okay. Even if I lose out on a couple hours or whatever, I'm not going to cry about spilled milk. And so inevitably, when I posted that and showed full transparency, Mark kicked me out of the chats, said that I was trying to charge, according to some of the people I've talked to, $5,000 for an event, which I wish. Damn, that'd be some good money, man. I'm ready for that,
Yeah, finally someone's making money in paintball.
Yeah, come on. I got a new job, Let's get this going. But yeah, so he did all that. By what I've kind of understood from everybody that I've talked to, it's been rumors that have not been true. I'm willing to show full transparency to anybody that gives a shit. Because to me, I am who I am. I'm not going to change, my character, my values for someone else. So for me, I felt like showing transparency was the best way for the team to understand. And that transparency got skewed because I got deleted, and the message got deleted almost immediately by what I understood from the people that stayed in the chats. It got skewed to the point where the guys that I had coached 42-0 were calling me going, "What the fuck did you do? Why the fuck did you abandon us? You son of a bitch." And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? You need to give me a call so we can talk about this. And so I explained exactly what happened. And when I explained my side of it and not, I guess, the skewed side of it, they completely understood what I did and why I did it. Because they're like, yeah, dude. Cause again, I'm getting home at 2:00 in the morning and I got to go to my real job at 4:00. That's great, but that gets rough, And if that's not accounted for, how do you sit there and go yeah, man, I made $100 this weekend and we won a tournament and I have to go to work for the next 10 hours for the next 5 days. And then I get to go do it all over again. And I get to make $100. I would rather stay at home and sleep,
Right.
I mean, you're going to lose your mind doing that, and you're not even making any money doing it, so what's the point? At some point, it's still about having fun with your friends and stuff, but you got to be able, especially if you're not playing or anything like that. You got to be able to make money, and I don't think what I was asking for was egregious. Neither did the players. Again, Mark said that he was trying to protect the players, but unfortunate for him, I had conversations with all those players before I did anything to make sure that I wasn't out of line or that I wasn't, like being crazy or that, whatever. And every single one of the players that I talked to was like, dude, more than fair. We appreciate it. Like we have no problem paying this. And unfortunately, because Mark's the owner, Mark gets the final say. And I mean, I still got these guys calling me today asking me if I'll still coach, and I tell them the same thing. You got to run it through Mark. I mean, I got no problem doing it, but I'm not going to get paid nothing to do something that I'm sacrificing a lot in my, daily life. I mean, I have a girlfriend, I have a dog, I have real life going on. And, like, unfortunately, like things cost money, especially good things, like when you get someone that can help you win tournaments like that, good things aren't cheap and cheap things aren't good. I think they started to learn that because, they've gotten a little bit cheaper, but however, those results are still not there. And the teams haven't changed. Those teams should be winning tournaments left and right. Mark told me when we were having our, I guess, discussions or arguments or whatever you want to call them, that I told him that he didn't understand what I brought to the table as a coach. And he said that any coach could coach his teams and make them as successful as I did and like have them win. And I have found that to be a fallacy because the same team's there, but they ain't winning.
Yeah, the records definitely don't lie. I mean, like your dominance last year across all of the lines that you coached. I mean, like I'm looking, I've got your PB leagues up in front of me right now, and it's like, let's see, first, third, first, fifth, second, first, like, goodness. There's definitely a big pattern of success there. And I mean, especially when you've been with the same program for so long and like you've had the same system, the players are super familiar with it. Like there's definitely a lot there that, that you have to build up basically from scratch whenever, like the move is made and you're no longer with the team. So, like definitely a massive loss for Austin Notorious. So like kind of speaking on your like coaching, like as far as anybody who maybe is looking for a coach out there, like what are you open to? What is your availability?
Yeah, I mean, I'm open to anybody. First and foremost, like we're gonna be winners. Like I don't care like what you believe in. Like we are gonna be winners, or I'm not really interested in going. My record, like you just said, like says that's what I bring. I bring a winning mentality, and that's what I want to teach people, man. I'm a firm believer that I can turn anybody into a winner. I did it with Marky and the pro team. Those were the first kind of rendition of the Notorious guys that I worked with. Obviously, that system worked, right? Mm-hmm. These new guys that I coached last year, I met them last year. I taught them the system. I grinded it into their heads. I worked with them. I'm very much invested in whatever I do. I'm not willing to half-ass anything in my life. But I think that's also where I get my successes from. I think Greg Pauly beat that into me as a young child, and I don't have another resource to go to. But, as far as teams that are looking, if you're looking for a coach that is going to nurture your team and communicate with them and build them up into a champion style team, I'm your guy. I talk a lot of philosophy to players. I think that the internal game is more important than the external game. I've met so many players that could snap shoot, 50 yards away and hit a nickel, but they had no idea once they got shot 15 times in their pack, they just start freaking out in the pits and then they explode and then they're nothing, right? I think the mental game is so much more important. And that's what I truly teach a lot of, which is also, I think, where I had a lot of success, and I also, Renee can attest to this, who's on Diesel, like I got him to come over to Notorious because I sat down. Mark, you wanted him. Mark told me, hey, can you go talk to this guy for me to see if you can get him? I went over and talked to him. And at that point, he was kind of a project player for Diesel. And I looked at him and I was like, man, they make you go do one thing. They make you a one-trick pony, don't they? They make you go to the snake and they make you run far on the Dorito side. And he's like, yeah. And I was like, it's kind of boring, huh? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I can't promise you I won't do that to you. But what I will promise you is, like, when you try things, I will never yell at you. I will encourage you. I was like, I need you to actually go make mistakes, and I need you to go learn how this is. So when you make a move and you go try to go bunker somebody and you get shot early, I'm going to break it down to be like, hey, you need to just check off this guy, and then you need to make that move. Or, hey, cut back in this way. So you could have lived, shot that guy, and then shot this guy, and you got 2 instead of 1. And, I mean, we saw the results of that kid. I mean, he is absolutely phenomenal now. And I can't take full credit. Ryan Gray did an amazing job, through their semi-pro, years and stuff like that. But that's really what I have to offer a team, is the ability to communicate and build a champion style team. I've done it as a player through multiple teams. I've done it as a coach now, through multiple renditions of teams. So yeah, I'm honestly looking for just opportunities of people that want to win. I love winning. And I want to be surrounded by people that love winning as much as I do. And if they don't know how to win, I'll help them learn.
I love it. So for anybody who's listening out there that maybe is like, hey, this Tyler guy might be our guy, how do they reach out to you?
That's a good question. Phone number, probably, because I'm horrible at text messaging or Facebook and Instagram. But you can hit me up on Messenger on my Facebook. You can look me up on Instagram. It's true_strength_fitness _fitness. Hit me up, send me a DM. If you want my phone number, it's 830-624-5467. That's going to be your best way of doing it for sure. Shoot me a text over. Just tell me what you're looking for. We can kind of have some conversations from there. See if it's something you're interested in and, something you want to, get involved with.
Love it. Dylan's in the chat. He says, have the Titans reached out?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I haven't gotten any DMs yet,
Well, you got his phone number now, Dylan, so.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, definitely. If you're thinking that you need a coach, Tyler's definitely the one who's got the record, and he's got the best type of ability, which is availability. So.
Yep.
For sure. All right. So this next question is brought to us by FU Athletics. So throughout your entire career in paintball, do you have a single favorite moment?
Single favorite moment. I've got a couple, to be honest. They're kind of like the same, like, statue.
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say winning World Cup was one of them. That was just an amazing feat. Obviously, a lot of people don't get to do that, especially in a D1 level. I would probably say some of my top ones are actually, it's a loss. Funny enough. So when I lost an MAO in 2008 against RNT with Vicious, it was my first finals appearance that I'd ever been in. And I just remember crying on the field. And it's one of those most memorable moments because, like, that's where I really learned, like, how to be a winner. Because I learned, I was like, oh shit, like, I can get here. Like, I'm capable of getting here. And I was this close. Like, okay, like, I can do this. Like, this is possible. And then I won World Cup that year with some great group of guys and great, support from all of our, managers and Greg and all the people that helped us out that year. But I would say that the top one for me is probably winning with AC Dallas, man. Like, that was just like, I can't even express. Like, I mean, Tim Land I've known since I was like, I think like 15 or 16. Dylan Bewley, same thing. We all played down in Joplin, Missouri and Springfield, Missouri way back in the day. And I mean, like, the fact that we even had a chance to get all three of us, because we always, hung out, but we always played on different teams. And so we had some success on those teams, but it was never like what it became like when we got together. I mean, we were unstoppable on a pro spot together. So the elation of going into Texas with a bunch of D3 players, myself, Brandon Mayo, Ross Saunders, Tim Land, and Dylan Bewley were the only experienced real people there. And being able to win that tournament, I mean, I don't know that there's a better feeling when we beat those guys, because we actually lost to the Outlaws in a Louisiana tournament. I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks earlier, and it was in the dark that we lost to them in the finals because you couldn't see anything. I mean, I remember being to the point where I was like, okay, I can see like a couple lights from like grips. I'm going to shoot and run at that. I don't know where I'm at onto the field. So like, I'm just going to run that way. And I started running, you know, just shooting, and it was just chaos. And we ended up losing because nobody could tell what was going on. Yeah, getting that victory is probably one of the sweetest victories I got to do, especially with my friends, and then winning that pro spot that year. That would probably be the top one for me. Yeah.
Definitely a lot of good ones to choose from.
Yeah.
So this next question is brought to us by 71 Design. So let's talk about this past event. So you played with Team Evil, which is Elite Audio, Video, and Lighting at the NXL Lone Star Major in Division 4, and obviously you guys won. So how did you feel the event went?
I think the event went great, man. Those dudes are just spectacular people. We really sat there and grinded it out as far as, you know, like when we got together, everybody knew what the mission was. You know, like we didn't go in there to take second place. Obviously me sandbagging the way that I did, I mean, it would probably have looked pretty bad had we have lost. I mean, I'm sure you can only imagine like what would have happened as far as the trash talking and stuff like that. But we went in with a goal. Like I said, man, I don't go in to lose events. Not that you can win every event. And there's a lot of people that go in saying like, we're going to win the event. And I don't believe that that's the mentality that you ever take in an event. Everybody's going to come and try to take your head off, and you have to be prepared for that. And if you're not prepared for that, that's usually where you get upset. For me, again, it just goes back to that mental game, man. I'm a firm believer in Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, you know, always was scared of his opponents until he got in the ring and he became a god. Not saying I'm a god by any stretch of the imagination. I'm washed up at this point in my career, but you know, I just have that mental tenacity to be able to have the confidence to know what I'm capable of. And when I really hit that stride, along with my teammates, man, it's hard. And I truly believe that those guys, I think, questioned me at first because I didn't get to practice with them at all. I mean, I'm down here in San Antonio. They're up in Dallas. They had, I think, a practice before the event, and I wasn't able to make it. And so when I got there, I knew I kind of had to like earn my right to be able to say like, hey, like, sure, I played pro, but like, what's up, wash up? You know, like, can you actually still play, or like, should we just go grab a beer for you and you just go ahead and sit down and coach for a little bit or something, you know? And so, yeah, I think I earned their respect within the first couple matches when they saw me kind of like pull a couple points back and get some kills and stuff like that. And I think they were like, okay, this guy, we trust this guy. And I think that's like my big thing, especially as a coach or a player, is just making sure that my teammates trust me. And I'm not one of those guys that sits there and tries to talk myself up. I'm a leader from the front. I'll never ask anybody to do anything that I won't do. I'm the guy that'll carry paint. I'm the guy that'll do whatever it takes, you know, for you to understand that like I'm that guy, you know, like, and that you can trust me. Because if you don't build that trust with people, people won't respect you. And I do believe that respect is earned. It's not given, right? Like, you're not going to walk in and be like, you're going to give me your respect. Like, no, you're going to earn that person's respect. And if you don't earn it, like, don't expect it.
Definitely. So tell us more about Team Evil and how exactly you came to join them.
Yeah. So I was, again, sitting here trying to do whatever, and I get a call from Mark Johnson. And I hadn't talked to him in a while. So I kind of thought the phone call was weird. And I was like, hey, I'm at work, you know, like, let me call you back. And so I called him back, played phone tag for a second. And he's like, hey, Justin, you know, and Rory have been trying to reach out to you. Like, you know, like they want you to play. And I'm like, okay, well, give them my phone number, you know, like, which is why I said my phone number is the best way to reach me. Because I looked at my DMs afterwards and I had like a bunch of messages from those dudes, but I don't know why they didn't call me. but basically Rory dropped a weight and exploded his toe from weightlifting, and he couldn't play. And so Rory was like, well, like let's get Tyler, I mean, he qualifies, he's, he won last year in the ones that he played in. And so basically Justin hit me up. We talked. Obviously, Doman and I have a history as well. We've never played a tournament that we haven't won together. He gets it. He understands the formula. Same thing with Cody. Cody and I played, and won some tournaments back in D1 and stuff like that. So, I mean, like, that was pretty easy. Like, hey, I'm going to play with my friends. Rory's, one of my great friends too. So I'm going to be around three of my, really good friends. And it's like, hell yeah, dude. Like, this sounds great. I heard some great things about Matt Crowder and then Henry. Knew nothing about them. And they definitely lived up to all the hype, man. Those kids are straight ballers. I definitely expect Evil to be, or EVAL, to be a contender for whatever they want to do. I'm hoping that I can either coach with them if I don't have any other opportunities, or play with them again. I know Rory's points and my points conflict, so I won't probably be able to play the next one, I don't believe. I think they're going to go to Cup. But I have talked to Justin, and there's a potential for them to move up to D3 next year, which would give me a slot. And I could think of nothing better than to just go dunk on some dudes. I love it. I'm not done with the sport. I love it so much. And I mean, just to be blessed to have so many guys. I mean, I don't think I've seen Justin in 8 years, or 6 years. I mean, like, it's been something like that. I mean, it's been a long time, and just famously pick up like where we left off, and like just having that camaraderie and like the ability to just talk about life and like what's gone on in the last couple of years. I mean, that's something that I think is so special to this sport, and just so amazing that you can literally go out and live life, get yourself set up, and come back, and like your friends are still your friends. Like, it's still amazing. Like, they still got love for you, still got love for them. And I really think that team is going to do some really great things.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually, my next question for you was going to be Evil having two other former AC Dallas camp members with Cody Zepeda and Justin Doman. Like, how was it getting to play with those guys again?
Oh man, it was great. Just guys are a barrel full of monkeys, man. Again, going back to the fun part, right? If you do something, have fun at it, and I think that so many other teams, I don't know if they just were worried about us, don't understand the formula yet, or what it is, but I can tell you that we had more fun than any other team, which is, I think, why we had that result, right? Because like, we were focusing on the fun. We weren't focusing on like, okay, we're playing this team, and oh my gosh, and like, we were like, okay, this team, we watched them, this is what they're doing, like, now forget about that and go have fun. As soon as like we'd be done, like, dude, I'd be sitting there taking my gear off, and before I could even get undressed, like, Cody Zepeda had a beer in his hand. I mean, I'm like, dude, where did you, like, the beer stand's like a quarter mile that way. How did you get a beer already? And he's just like, oh man, just sipping on it. I'm like, oh, all right, dude, like, hey, do your thing, But again, it's focusing on that fun, and again, like, when you win, it's fun. Now, I could have imagined if we would have gone 0-4, it probably would have been some different conversations and a little bit more yelling. But I think that when you get a team together and you can have fun and you don't take it so seriously, and you it's really taking the pressure off. It's not that you don't take it serious. It's that you just don't pressure yourself so much to where you fail, and because we were able to do that because we've already done it together, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's where a lot of our success came from.
Sure. I mean,
and making new friends along the way, right?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, winning's fun, right?
Absolutely. Funnest thing I found so far, if someone's got something more fun, like, please let me know so I can get into it,
For sure. All right. So, so looking to the future, like what's next for you this season? Are you, do you have any teams locked in, or do you have any other events locked into play? What's next for you? And that's brought to us by Hydra.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything really on the books. I didn't really honestly know. I mean, I've had teams reach out to me and stuff like that, but nothing solidified. Um, to me, like I just again, I want to have fun. I want to, do stuff that's actually enjoyable. Like, I'm past the point of going out and grinding for 42 weeks and then, like going to, barely scraping by for a tournament and stuff like that. Um, anybody that has any opportunities, please hit me up. If you want to go try to win and, you think you have an opportunity to, and I can be that kind of, little bump you guys need to get it, please. But I don't
Perfect.
have anything lined up currently. I'd love to have something lined up. I'd love to get back in the sport though.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody knows where to reach you.
Yeah.
So this next question is one I ask everybody that comes on the show. Helps me kind of keep track of any up and comers or anybody flying under the radar out there. So this one's brought to us by Get Dat Shot. Message him, @GetDat_shot on Facebook or Instagram if you're needing media coverage at the upcoming USXBL event. So is there anybody in the Texas paintball community, could be teams, players, brands, projects, vendors, anybody that have caught your attention lately? Who do you think deserves more recognition for what they're doing?
Players, I would definitely say Cam from Jackpot has definitely caught my eye. Obviously, like that kid's just a stud. He's like what 12,
Mm,
and he's already winning. I mean, like that kid by the time he's probably 16 is going to be phenomenal. Henry, the kid I played with on EVAL, that kid is going to be a stud too. Those kids, they're putting in the work and they're grinding really hard, and I think that that's going to pay off for them. Matt Crowder as well. Stud, if he actually wanted to get back into the sport full time, I'm sure he could, and people would be, lining up to get him on a team. As far as brands, man, I really got to give it up to like the Lacows, man. Paintball Fit is just a different level. They are literally setting the standard for what paintball is becoming, and I love it. Like those people are so great. They're so nice. Like I've never had any bad interactions with them. Like even when I used to play up there all the time, like they were just salt of the earth type people. And I really hope that they just keep growing and building and, they make it as big as they want to make it because they deserve it, man. I really think what they do with Hydra, what they do with the community, what they do with how they grow the community. I mean, it's all inclusive, like no one's excluded. And I just think that is the way that it should be. So kudos to the Lacows and Paintball Fit, man. You guys are crushing it.
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a reason they're the number one field in America. And yeah, shout out to Cameron Blanco as well. I think this past weekend he was actually up at the Team USA tryouts for the U16 team. Yeah. So we're eagerly awaiting.
I think he actually made the 16 and the 19.
Really? Well, we're.
Word on the street. I got a roommate that still plays professional paintball, so I get a little bit of insider stuff. But I don't know if that's been confirmed or not. But that's kind of what was being talked about. And again, like I think that kid deserves the world. I think that he's going to do great things. I mean, especially at 12, and you're already getting considered for the U16 team. I mean, that's fantastic, man. I give kudos to the Jackpot guys. I mean, they played one season and they were successful. I would have liked to not make them successful because my team was still in it, but I had a disagreement and had to leave that team. But kudos to those guys. I mean, phenomenal performances, and I think that they're only going to get better too.
Yeah, for sure.
And we got Jeremy Zimmerman, right? I mean, Jeremy Zimmerman's my boy, so I got to give love to where it's deserved.
100%. Yeah. All right. So this final question is brought to us by Compete, which is Jell Stewart's brand. Message him on Facebook or Instagram. Mention In the Pits for 10% off of your order of soft goods. So Tyler, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any last shout outs or things you'd like to say before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you to everybody that's, made this journey in paintball possible for me, from the coaches to the people that have helped in the pits to, the pod runners and, the people that just don't get any kind of love. Without those kind of people, I definitely wouldn't have been where I am today. Greg Pauly gave me an amazing opportunity. Tim Montrester took a chance on me. And I'm just eternally grateful for those guys being able to see something that as a young kid I couldn't quite see in myself, but they molded it and they formed it into something that became a champion. And that's something that a lot of people don't get to experience in their life. And I think that's something that I hold very dear to myself, is the opportunities and the lessons that I've learned from those people, and just getting to kind of live a life that most people have never even thought about experiencing or know that's possible. I haven't lived a normal life because, I got with Greg when I think I was 16 years old or something like that, or 17. I mean, I was young. And it was one of those things that, although it was some tough love and it was some really hard moments, like, Greg gave me the opportunity to really be able to mold myself and like be able to be a tenacious person. So shout out to Greg, and everybody else that has helped me along this journey. My dad definitely, just told me never to quit. He just kept telling me to, do what I love. And as long as I'm having fun, I'd start grinding really hard and I'd start doing things where I'm like, man, I just want to do this and I want to look, and I wouldn't enjoy the wins as much as I should have. That's one regret that I do have is, man, you win a tournament, hold that finger up. You don't get to do it very often, and just show love to everybody that's there around you, because it took everybody to win that. It wasn't one person. You can't win as an individual. You have to win as a team. And my dad really beat that into me as a kid, and I'm just eternally grateful for like people, being able to like see what I was doing, and like when I start going down the wrong path, and as far as like just like not focusing on the win and like, man, like that was an amazing thing, like you just accomplished. It's like, yeah, I accomplished that, but like look at what I could have, like the next one's the one that matters. And he always told me to take a moment to like really enjoy that. I just really am appreciative about everybody that allowed me to get on this journey and stay on this journey.
All right, I love it. All right, so I think that does it for our show. Tyler, thank you so much again. And everybody listening online, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to go follow Tyler on Instagram. That's at true_strength_fitness. Again, if you're wanting to reach out to him, hit him up on Messenger, hit him up on Instagram, or just, give him a text or a phone call. So what other guests would you all like to see on the show? Be sure to leave a comment down below. While you're at it, hit that subscribe button. The show goes live weekly here on youtube.com/@inthepitspaintballpodcast, and recordings are posted to YouTube, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify the next day. I'm going to give a shout out to my partner and sponsor tier subscribers on Patreon: FU Athletics, Get That Shot, Paintball Kumite, Compete, BEMRAPS, Hydra, XCPL Events, Mariachi Aguilas de Oro, Podrunners Union, 71 Designs, and Bioworks IV. We'll see you guys next week for episode 99. And to drop our final hint of who our episode 100 guest is going to be, and we'll have the full reveal next week. The first hint was this person was going to be present at the NXL Lone Star Major. Second hint, he is not a current player. Third and final hint, this person has been inducted into the Paintball Hall of Icons, and as a player, he was known for playing with Team Bad Company. So anybody who knows their stuff in paintball, that should be a dead giveaway. So we will see you guys next week. And Tyler, thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Christian. Really appreciate you, man.
Sure.